Have you ever heard the story of the king who never told a lie? It sounds like the beginning of a fairy tale, doesn't it? Well, this king was so proud of his honesty that he decided to put it to the ultimate test. He announced a grand contest throughout his kingdom. The challenge? To find the greatest liar in all the land. And what was the prize for this dubious honor? A magnificent, solid golden apple. A treasure so beautiful it was the talk of the entire realm. Word of the contest spread like wildfire. People from every corner of the kingdom, from bustling cities to quiet villages, flocked to the royal palace. They were all eager to try their luck and win the legendary golden apple. The throne room was packed day after day with hopeful contestants. Each one stepped forward, bowed to the king, and spun their most elaborate, fantastical tale. One man claimed he had once wrestled a dragon and used its fiery breath to toast his bread for breakfast. He described the dragon's scales, the heat of its breath, and the victorious feast he enjoyed afterward. The king listened patiently, a slight smile on his lips, but in the end, he simply shook his head. A child's fantasy, he declared. Not a truly great lie. The man walked away, disappointed. Next came a woman who swore she had sailed to the moon in a boat made of woven moonlight. She spoke of craters filled with sparkling diamond dust and rivers of flowing silver. She described the silent, starry sky and how she danced with moonbeams. The court was mesmerized by her poetic words. But again, the king was unimpressed. A beautiful story, my dear, but it lacks the spark of a truly convincing falsehood, he said gently. Another contestant, a boastful merchant, claimed his warehouse was so large that a young boy who entered one end came out the other as a grey-bearded old man. He went into great detail about the endless aisles and towering shelves. The king just chuckled. An exaggeration, certainly, he said, but not the work of a master liar. And so it went. One by one, people told their stories. They spoke of talking animals, of mountains made of sugar, of seas that were actually giant bowls of soup. They lied about their strength, their wealth, their incredible adventures. Each lie was more outrageous than the last. The royal scribes were running out of ink just trying to keep up with all the tailies. But the king, the man who had never uttered a single lie, was not swayed by any of them. He would listen, nod, and then dismiss each one with a simple phrase. That's not a lie, that's just a tall tale. Or, that's impossible, not a clever lie. He was looking for something more, a lie so perfect, so ingenious, that even he would be forced to admire it. Days turned into weeks, and the line of contestants began to shrink. The initial excitement had faded, replaced by a sense of disappointment. It seemed no one in the entire kingdom could craft a lie clever enough to fool or impress the honest king. The golden apple sat on its velvet cushion, gleaming under the light, seemingly unattainable. The king himself was growing weary. He sighed, thinking he might have to end the contest without a winner. Perhaps there were no truly great liars, only storytellers with wild imaginations. Just as he was about to make the announcement and send everyone home, the grand doors of the throne room creaked open one last time. A humble peasant shuffled in. He wasn't dressed in fine silks like the merchants, nor did he carry himself with the bravado of a warrior. He wore simple, patched-up clothes, and his hands were calloused from hard work in the fields. In those hands, he carried a large, empty iron cauldron. He walked slowly, deliberately, toward the throne. The court guards watched him suspiciously, but the king, intrigued by this late arrival, gestured for him to approach. The peasant stopped before the royal dais, placed the heavy cauldron on the marble floor with a loud clang that echoed through the silent hall, and bowed his head respectfully. Everyone leaned forward, curious to hear what this simple man's lie would be. Would he talk about magical seeds or giant vegetables? The king raised an eyebrow. "Well, my good man," he said, his voice echoing slightly, "have you come to tell me a lie and win the golden apple?" The peasant looked up, his eyes meeting the king's directly. His expression was serious, almost grim. "I am not here to tell you a lie, Your Majesty," he said, his voice steady and clear. The court murmured in confusion. What was he doing here then? The peasant pointed a finger at the empty pot. "I am here," he declared loudly, "because you owe me a pot of gold, and I have come to collect it." A stunned silence fell over the throne room. You could have heard a pin drop. Then, a few chuckles rippled through the crowd of courtiers. Owe this peasant a pot of gold? The idea was absurd. The king, who was known for his meticulous record-keeping and perfect honesty, was completely taken aback. His face, usually so calm and composed, flushed with indignation. He stared at the peasant, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Owe you a pot of gold?" The king sputtered, his voice rising in astonishment. "That is the most ridiculous, outrageous, preposterous thing I have ever heard. I have never borrowed a single coin in my life, let alone an entire pot of gold from you. You, sir, are an outrageous liar." The moment the words left the king's mouth, a slow smile spread across the peasant's face. The corners of his eyes crinkled. He had been waiting for this exact reaction. He bowed low once more, a twinkle in his eye. "Your Majesty," he said calmly, his voice filled with a newfound confidence. "You yourself have just declared me an outrageous liar. If I am indeed such a big liar, the biggest liar you have ever heard, then surely I have won your contest. I deserve the golden apple." The king froze. The words hung in the air, trapping him. The courtiers gasped, suddenly realizing the genius of the peasant's trap. The king had walked right into it. He had, with his own honest mouth, confirmed that the peasant's claim was a lie, a fantastic lie, at that. By his own contest rules, the peasant was now the frontrunner. It was a symbol of his wealth and power, and he wasn't about to part with it so easily. He thought quickly, trying to find a way out of this clever predicament. He cleared his throat. "Hold on," he said, trying to regain his composure. It's not a particularly impressive lie, just a baseless accusation. It doesn't deserve the prize." He was trying to backtrack, to diminish the peasant's accomplishment. The peasant's smile didn't falter. He was one step ahead. He straightened up and looked the king right in the eye. "Ah, but Your Majesty," he retorted, his voice ringing with logic, "if what I said is not a lie, if I am not a liar as you now suggest, well then, I must be telling the truth." He gestured again to the empty cauldron on the floor. "And if I am telling the truth, then you must give me the pot of gold you owe me." Checkmate. The king was trapped. He looked from the gleaming golden apple to the empty iron pot, then back to the clever peasant standing before him. The entire court held its breath, waiting to see what the honest king would do. He was caught in a perfect paradox, a flawless logical dilemma crafted by a simple farmer. If he admitted the peasant was lying, he had to give him the golden apple. If he denied the peasant was lying, he had to give him a pot of gold he didn't have and didn't owe. Of the two options, one was clearly better, or at least less costly. The king couldn't bring himself to pay a non-existent debt, as that would force him into a dishonest act of his own. A slow smile of admiration began to form on the king's face, replacing his shock and frustration. He had been bested. He had been outsmarted. He started to laugh, a deep, hearty laugh that filled the entire throne room. The tension broke, and the courtiers joined in, applauding the peasant's incredible wit. The king stood up, took the golden apple from its cushion, and walked down the steps of the throne. He placed the heavy, shining prize into the peasant's hands. "You are right. the king boomed, his voice full of respect. "I have searched my entire kingdom for the greatest liar, and I have finally found him. Your lie was not a fanciful tale, but a brilliant trap. It was a lie that forced the truth to serve its purpose." And so the humble peasant who came to the palace with nothing but an empty pot and a clever idea walked away with the golden apple declared by the honest king himself to be the greatest liar in all the land. It just goes to show you, sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't a sword or a dragon, but a well-placed word. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more tales of wit and wisdom.